jump right in because we've got a lot to talk about. I mean, it's been just a crazy week all around. Um, the world is no better than it was last week. This is why we all come together here and in the forum. If somebody can post the forum now that the YouTube is up, you can post the link to the forums for any members who have not visited us yet. But the world has changed. It's been a crazy weekend with the Twitter dump that Elon put out of all of the backroom stuff that has been going on. So it's been a hectic weekend with that. Although I guess the news hasn't covered it at all. Shocker. Shocker. But tonight we're going to be talking about situational awareness. And we're going to be talking about the things that don't always come up. Okay. Let me see here. The thing about like shit hit the fan scenarios, or a world without rule of law, right? Any of these types of scenarios, is that people were kind of conditioned, especially when we first start coming in to any type of preparedness mindset. We are conditioned on our air, water, food, and shelter, but and medical and firearms and all of the other things. But the reality is there's things that actually will occur during these times that we need to start taking into consideration. We need to start thinking about looking at your own unique situation, obviously talking to members in the forum and here as well to get some questions answered. So these are the things I'm going to be talking about, of expectations that most people are not thinking of in a situation like that. Okay. So probably in the civilian world, one of the biggest teachings is the keyword stop, right? So in the civilian world, they do it a little bit different. They say in the acronym stop means, the S means actual stop. And then they say, remain calm. And then T is think, which is, basically think about, decide what you need to do, or, what's happening, and then observe and plan. And so that's the civilian method. I'm going to talk tonight about the military, or what I learned in the Marine Corps going through survival, extreme cold weather survival school. And it's the same keyword of stop, but it was situation, threat, observe, and plan. Okay. So with the S with situation, the very first thing you need to understand is what happened. What is the situation? So there's the global, the more bigger scale. What was the threat that occurred? And then you can get into, well, what is your own specific situation? Might be things like your location, or what you're wearing, your landmarks that are around you. What do you see? What do you recognize? Okay. Who's around you that might need help? These types of things. And then your threats. What is in your immediate threat, and what could be a longer term threat at that time? Because you have to understand that that's the most moment of clarity you're going to have, is as soon as an event happens. Okay. That's when you've really, you haven't started any dehydration process. You haven't started any, reduction in calories at this time. So this first few moments of decision making is imperative to getting you through kind of that first rough spot of survival before you get into a more longer term thing. Okay. So you want to be looking at all of your threats. You want to observe what's in your surroundings. What can you see? Is there anything in your observable area that could be useful to you? Okay. And then obviously, because you're still clear-headed, this is the time that you want to come up with a plan, both an immediate plan and a longer-term plan. Now, I don't mean a longer-term plan like forever. I mean a longer-term plan to get you into a safe environment, okay? Because you might be caught out in the open, all right? So you want to start to devise that plan of safety right then and there at that time, okay? But it's kind of the same, but in military tactics, it's a little bit different than what they do in the civilian world, okay? The reality is, I'm going to say this many, many times tonight as we go through some of these things. 99.9% of the world is not at all prepared. Never mind this type of prepared. They're not prepared at all, mentally or emotionally, for any disruption to their everyday life. Okay. The highlight of a lot of these people's day might be going to Starbucks, okay, and getting their latte. And so the very first day they can't do that, and there's an interruption into their life, they're going to start to freak out. So for me, one of the most important thing for me is positive mental attitude. We call that PMA, okay? Having a positive mental attitude. But it's also an emotional attitude as well. So I also include EMA as well as PMA. From my Marine Corps experience, and again, going through the survival school, I can tell you that it doesn't matter how great physical shape you're in. It does not matter what gear you have. You could have all the best gear. It's not going to matter. I can tell you that you could be an expert and have all the knowledge in the world. You can have all the knowledge in the world as far as how to survive, how to read terrain, your land navigation skills, your fire starting skills, your hunting skills. You could have all of these things and you could have them down pat and you could have trained on them. Okay. And you could train with all your gear, all the things we preach. But if you do not have a positive mental attitude, in other words, if you do not believe that you're 100% going to survive, then you're not. Okay. If you believe or lose hope at any point, then your chances of survival drop significantly. And I want you to understand this positive mental attitude on a very deep level and the emotional mental attitude as well. Okay. Or the emotional attitude as well. In a situation like this, we think that we are mentally prepared for anything that could happen. And part of that is that we've gained confidence because we've been in that prepared mindset. But you've got to think about something where, the world has changed vastly, and it could be instantaneously or over a very short period of time. You could also be dealing with people that you love very much and they are hurt. Okay. And this is going to hurt you. And obviously, on a more extreme scale, you could have death surrounding you. You could go, time without speaking to your loved ones here. So these things are all going to start to weigh. Plus, depression that the world has changed will also lead to a reduction in your mental capacity. Okay. So you want to be aware of these things that I'm talking about now. Because if they were to happen, you need to have, again, planning, having a good preparedness plan for all of these things provides security and comfort, okay? And it doesn't tax on your brain or your mental capacity. I would also encourage all of you, because I know that sometimes in family dynamics, you'll have somebody who is well versed in these things and they're well prepared. They're like the leader of the family, okay? But other people don't even think about it. They'll think like, and I'll tell you personally, like in my family, for a while, it was just, that'll take care of that, right? I don't have to worry about that because, he's got this down pat. But the reality is that you don't want to be in a position where you're trying to take care of other people's mental and emotional breakdowns while you're trying to do all these other things, okay? So starting to train them to think about these things as well. In other words, this is what we call it, right? Prepare your tribe. Everybody in your tribe needs to participate, especially in the PMA piece, especially in that positive mental attitude piece, okay? I'm also just going to kind of throw out there that the truth is that everybody's different. Okay. Everyone is different. And so you have to look at your own family dynamics. I got 3 kids, right? So, and they're all different. So I was an only child. Okay. So I didn't have any siblings, but now as a dad, when I have 3 boys together, it's so crazy to see how you can have 3 kids grow up in the same exact environment and be so friggin' different. It's just, it's an experience to me that I have learned. And so I have to engage them on different levels based on their personality and give them things that they really like is part of that preparedness plan. So just things to think about there. Okay. All right. Let's move forward here. Big thing that people don't typically think about is trash and garbage, right? And again, any sustained event, there's going to be complete services breakdown. So there's not going to be, put your recyclables in a blue bin, okay? There's going to be nobody to come to pick that up, both in your own environment, right? Your immediate environment. So we'll just say your house, but in your entire neighborhood, your entire community. All you have to do is, and unfortunately in this world, they're everywhere. And Patrick actually posted some stuff of Sacramento and San Francisco right now, or San Diego right now. But just look at a homeless tent encampment area. It is littered with just trash everywhere. Okay. And this is a big problem for a few reasons, I mean, and I'm going to get to sanitation and hygiene, but there's that piece of it. But you're also going to have people who don't know what to do with it. And so what are they going to do? They're going to stop burning it. Now, you could burn it as well, but I can tell you, as somebody who has done that in the military, you need safety equipment if you're going to start going down that road. So you also, something to preparedness you need to think about. Like, if you're going to go down that road, you need to have some type of respiration system if you're going to do that. Okay. But the other thing is, people are just going to be throwing it everywhere. It's going to be everywhere, and they're not going to be responsible, I guess is what I would say, in nature. Okay. They're going to throw it next to water lines. Okay. And water flows. They're going to, and water resources. I mean, people don't study this, right? So when it actually, if and when it actually happens, they're not going to be responsible about it. Like, we live in this whole earthy world right now where everything is about recycling, and any type of event. And I would even say, if it's short term, if it's just 3 weeks and there's a complete service breakdown, it's going to be a mess. Okay. So you want to start thinking about your area though. Okay. How are you going to deal with trash? How are you going to deal with garbage? What are the things you're going to do? Like scraps of food, you have animals that you can reuse that for, things like this. Okay. All right. So that was that one. Fires. Oh man, my friends. You know, so I'll give you another little MGB insight. So my dad was the battalion chief of the fire department of the town that I live in. So I grew up in a firefighting home. Okay. And again, my dad was the battalion chief. So it is amazing in 2022, since fire has given us so much of the human history, how bad people don't understand fire. Like, they don't understand the basics of fire. They don't understand the basics of, controlling fire. They don't understand that. And I know that, right? So you have to understand that a lot of people are going to be, creating fires to cook, creating fires, maybe even to keep warm. Okay. Creating fires to burn trash. And it's going to get out of control. And if there isn't resources there to deal with it, like the fire department, we're going to have fires everywhere, and we don't know what they're burning, right? We don't know exactly what they're burning that is now getting to the air and can be toxic. And, if you've watched the show, you watched any of the other stuff that I've been talking about nonstop in the forum, I'm like, mask is number one, right? Because this is another event where people are just going to be completely irresponsible in what they do. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Yeah, so cooking is another one. People set their freaking house on fire nowadays, cooking, right? But you imagine when people, start getting propane tanks and never dealt with propane before, right? I mean, it's just going to be a mess. It's going to be a mess. And also, about firing, we're also going to have the friggin' idiot rioters out there, right? And any type of, again, sustained collapse, these jerk offs are going to go stop burning shit just to burn it, right? So we got to start to think about that as well. All right. Sanitation and hygiene, and this is a big one that I am always thinking about. I'm always trying to improve, and even after decades of doing this, you find new and inventive ways, because sanitation and hygiene, to me, in this type of situation, is one of the most dangerous things. And I would even say that, in depending on the type of situation that could happen or would happen, where there is no services at all, this is one of the things that could actually kill more people than whatever the event would be. Right? So like, an event could happen, but this would be like the fallout to that event. Like, I think that more people would get sick and pass away, unfortunately, due to the inability to keep a sanitized area. Okay. And I mean that both locally, in your home, in your community, and beyond. Okay. But I mean, we see this even with communities that are in other countries that you can look at where they have diseases there. And actually, I think even in the homeless camps here in America. So I won't even say other countries. Here in America, I know that we have seen diseases pop up that we thought were rooted out of society completely, but yet here they are, right? And a lot of them actually do come back through an unsanitized environment in some of these homeless camps. So again, in any type of event where it is sustained, we can expect some nasty shit to pop up that we're not prepared for. So keeping our areas sanitized is going to be very, very important. Uh, but a big thing with sanitization and hygiene is like when we think of our rule of threes, right? Air, water, food, right? 3 minutes without air, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. We're always thinking water from a consumption standpoint, right? Keeping ourselves hydrated. But we use a ton more water in the sanitization of our world than we do in actual consumption. So when you're starting to think about water and water storage, you've got to start thinking about this, right? Thinking about switching it just from the perspective of consuming to sanitization, right? It's an enormous piece of preparedness. It's just huge. Okay. And you want to have that plan in place beforehand. Now, there's cool things like waterless soaps that are out there that I've tried. I've tried many of them. Obviously, we have hand sanitizers and those types of things as well that will help you in an effort to cut down on actual water needed for sanitization. But I can tell you for certain, especially spending sometimes months out in the field, you there is nothing like a shower, right? Like we talked about positive mental attitude at the beginning of this. There is nothing like the feeling of being clean after something like this. Okay. It's a huge morale booster. It is a huge effect on you emotionally as well. And so, having a plan again for that and recyclable if you can, or a plan to do it long term. Because again, my opinion is you want to get to preparedness of 3 weeks at a minimum. At a minimum, that's your goal. So, we're used to in this world, obviously, taking long hot showers for 45 minutes if we want. I mean, America is wonderful, right? It's fantastic. But that is not going to happen in a situation where the methods of preparedness are going to come in. The other thing there to remember too is that there is a balance between being very clean and blending in. And I guess I'll get to that when I get to clothing, which is a little more down the list. But anyway, it's a huge morale booster. Obviously, it helps prevent disease, and it's something that you need to think about. Okay. Also, think about how you're going to deal with waste in your tribe. There's buckets, composting, toilets. Dig a hole, obviously, away from a water source. All of these things, garbage bags, Ziploc bags. There's 1,000 different ways to do it. But understand this again. We're not just talking about ourselves. We're also talking about all the idiots around us, okay? And while we'll try to be responsible with our own area and our own waste, we cannot expect that the people who have never even thought of this, and especially under an environment without rule of law, that they're going to be respectful to you or anybody else in any way. So you also have to think about your location, your area, and how do you perceive some of these things are going to go down, okay? Because I can tell you, and we say this all the time, but that friendly neighbor of yours, not going to be so friendly as time goes on, okay? Not going to be so friendly. And then just little things, things like deodorant make a big difference, right? Make sure you have enough toothpaste. You have your toothbrush, your toothpaste, things like that. Again, these are not just from a sanitization and hygiene perspective, but an enormous morale booster. Okay. Comms. Comms. Staying in communication. So Michelle has a fantastic write-up all about the ham radio in the forum, and I highly encourage all of you to go read, her ham setup. It is a fantastic post. She did a bang-up job on it. Okay, and if you can go the ham route, great. If you can't, just start with About Fang Radio. Get the F8. It's perfect. It's not that expensive and it's enough to get you through. Okay. I really want us to get to the point, and I know when we first kind of got up, we started to talk about it, but it's going to be on my agenda, especially as the growth that we're seeing continues, is to develop a way for us to communicate nationwide through these methods. I think it's probably the thing that's on the top of my mind the most as far as security to us as an entire community. And it's great. We can also stay connected, right, without any type of grid situation. But at a minimum, you want some type of way to listen. I'm going to say that again because I said communication, but you want some type of way to listen. Okay. In this type of environment, we're listening, right? So God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. He wants us to listen more than talk, as they say. You want to, the primary reason why I have them, okay, is because of the listening thing. I want to know what's happening, right? So you can use them, you can double them as a scanner too as well. So I want to know, are there services running? Are fire departments running? Are police departments running? Are they not running? Okay. And if they are, what are they saying? Right? Because I want to know that. I want to tap into other frequencies and I want to listen to exactly what's going out on the world outside before I step foot outside. Okay. I want to know exactly what's happening. So we call it from a communication standpoint. Me personally, I wouldn't be communicating that much on them. They're more for a listening device than anything else, in my opinion, especially in the beginning. Okay. You want to know exactly how your community is running. Okay. And then further out, obviously, as well. Okay. Yeah. Quarantined Catholic. That's who she was. We need her back, man. She had that dope setup, man. That setup was fantastic. So, I mean, we kind of need her in there, man. She was doing great work. Okay. All right. So anyway, so that's all I'm going to say about comms. Okay. I think that we're going to eventually grow that out for sure. I mean, I know we will. I know we will grow it out. But at a minimum, try to get yourself About Fang. Okay. Let's talk about some clothing and some gray man and, possibly trekking out and that stuff. So a couple things here. A lot of times in the preparedness world, or you watch different videos, you belong to different forums, they'll tell you about the gray man scenario where if you go out, you want to blend in. Okay. This is obviously very true. And your primary, I wouldn't say goal, but your first instincts should be that you're already prepared and you don't need to go anywhere. You just stay put, stay safe, right? Wait for the world to kind of figure it out what it is. You've got your resources, mind your own business, live your life for a couple of weeks until it all gets settled and figured out. Okay. But if you should be in a situation where you need to trek out, it is very important that you, so quote unquote, gray man it. Okay. Blend in. But there's a couple of things that I do that I think would be really instrumental for you to learn. Okay. So I have a gray man outfit there. It's actually what I use to do my lawn. Okay. In other words, I don't want to go out into society in a world without rule of law and be crispy clean, smell like Irish Spring. Okay. You don't want to do that because you're going to attract immediate attention that you're somebody that obviously has resources. Okay. So what I do, but I want to be clean too, right? I don't want to be unsanitized as well. So all of the I have a set of clothing that I use to do all my yard work in. Okay, super comfortable stuff that I work for hours and hours and hours in, mowing the lawn, doing the leaves, shoveling snow in the winter, all that stuff. Okay, it's well worn. In other words, I've worn it out. It's got grass stains on them. They've got holes in them. The shoes are dirty. Okay, but they are super comfortable clothes that I'm comfortable in. Okay. But at first look, you'd be like, wow, this person's been through a war zone. Okay. So, I just think a lot of times when people get into preparedness, they're buying gear and then they're just storing it away. Like they're buying a pair of boots and saying, okay, these are my, shit hit the fan boots, right? And they put them with their preparedness stuff. And, this is my, gray man outfit and it's brand new with tags on it. And they put that stuff aside. That's not what you want to do. Okay. That's a bad idea because you're still going to look really too clean to go out there. Now, I even have a set of bandages that I have, right? Like I have a wrap for my arm that kind of looks like I've hurt my arm because I want to look like if I have to trek out, I want to look like I'm like everybody else. I've taken a beating in whatever this event is. Okay. So anyway, just some things to think about that I do. And I know I'm nuts about this. Okay. And I'm a little bit, people can perceive me that way. But the reality is that I want to be prepared. I want my family to be prepared. And I don't trust anybody else in this situation, especially in that situation. Absolutely not. Um, so take that for what it is. The other thing about moving, and you've heard me say this a couple of times, especially in the last couple of weeks. If you're going to move, you need to know your surrounding area, and specifically speaking, railroad tracks. Okay. I am like a hobo. Okay. And I have been a hobo for a long time. I walk uh, tracks, I bike tracks all the time because they are, to me, the best routes to learn the best routes to where I want to go to places while avoiding everybody. I don't have to be on road. They go to all those same great destinations, but I don't have to be on any roads. I don't have to be on local roads. I don't have to be on highways. I don't have to do any of that. Most of them are hidden or tucked away because they, just the way they've number one, engineered them, but number two, they put up a lot of barriers around them as far as shrubbery, sometimes tunnels, to distract people from actually seeing it as they're traveling through the different highway systems. So for me, it's a phenomenal way, and it's actually fun. And I know I'm a little bananas, but to me, like if I'm going to go for a walk, I want to go for a walk. I want to go for a hike. I actually, instead of hiking a trail, I hike a railroad track. Right? I know where they are everywhere around me. I know exactly how to walk to them, and I know exactly where they go. So I encourage you to do that. It's a lot of fun. And I've, taken the kids, and we put the little pennies and nickels and quarters on the track. Right? We go do our big walk. And next day, 2 days later, or the next week, even when we go, we'll go walking again. And they love the fact that the train ran over the coins and they're all flat. And it makes it fun for them too. So I'm incorporating the family into some of this as well, and allowing them to orient themselves to the community and these things too, so that it's not a brand new environment to them and they don't freak out. Should something like this happen, it's something they've done 100 times before. It's just another stroll with dad. Okay. All right. So hope you get some use out of that. Let's talk about some other stuff. What's next on my list? Oh yeah. Your house. So, we always talk about shelter, and believe it or not, in an event like this, shelter becomes very accessible for people. We would actually get rid of we would actually get rid of our homeless population. There wouldn't be anybody homeless, because what would happen is people would just start taking over commercial buildings. So all your little strip malls, office buildings, right? Industrial buildings, manufacturing buildings, basically everything that's not a residential structure, people will start to use that as shelter, especially if there's no rule of law. There's nobody to come kick them out. Okay. This is what they're going to do. They're going to go to these places. And so shelter is going to be in an essence a sort of a commodity. Okay, there's going to be a lot of it, and people will gravitate towards it. Okay, but you'll have your own shelter, which is your house. You'll also have these people out there looking for different shelter. Okay, and let's face it, we're most likely in that situation. You're going to have gangs or groups of rioters and people that are not good people, and without rule of law, they might be looking to become the rule of law. Okay, they might become that, and so it's very likely that they cowboy it and start to try to take over a local area, or a community. Okay, especially if they're not being challenged. Okay, and so when it comes to your shelter, one of the things that I suggest you think about, at least, okay, is making your shelter, having a plan, I should say, for your home and what it should look like in case this happens. Now, I have a very easy system for this. I mean, and I think if you live in a hurricane area zone, you would definitely have stuff like this. But I just have simple plywood to put over the windows, because I would do that anyway in this situation, right? We don't want people looking in the window, especially if you have multiple floors. Like if you have a 2-floor, you don't want anybody peeking in those downstairs windows. If you have a single family, like ranch style house, that's one level, you don't want anybody to be able to see in. And so we would block that. So in my case, with plywood. Okay. And then I have areas of the house where I can see all corners of the house from different perspectives and different angles without using like the big picture windows. Okay. So I have 2 big picture windows in the house, one on the lower level, one on the top level, and then I have a door, and I have plywood that is I've cut to size to each one of those huge windows, and for the door, and spray paint on the actual plywood, dead bodies inside, right? And then on the door, a dead, toxic N95 mask only. And so putting that up, somebody comes along and they're going down the street looking at the houses, trying to go into the house, maybe rummaging for resources or materials and things like that. They come across yours, the first thing they're going to see is that, and they're going to be like, fuck it, I'll skip that one and go to the next one. Okay, and that's exactly why we're doing it, right? We don't want to be in a challenge situation if we don't have to. Okay, because especially, again, they could be part of a gang, going out into an entire neighborhood doing this. And it's 3 simple pieces of plywood, and it's just used as a deterrent. Okay, that's all it's used for. All right, so I think that's the big pieces that I had tonight of the stuff that I want you to start thinking about that isn't common. These things are not always common to our talks of preparedness. And while we hope these things never occur, we do, again, stay informed, and we have an ever-changing world right now. And we actually have a very antsy and hateful world. And I mean, you guys know this, okay? And so, like, when I look at world stability and I look at community stability, I say to myself, I just don't see it getting better. I'm really been struggling lately, really in like the last 2 years, go figure, but probably even longer than that, of saying, how can we get to forget about peace? That's not even what I'm talking about. Forget about peace. Just stability, right? Just stability where the hate comes down. And I just haven't seen that, folks. I mean, I have only seen it, the fiercity of it increase, the extreme hate increase. So I don't, in other words, I don't see that we've hit a point where we are ready to kind of reverse. Now, things are always a bell curve, right? I just think we're getting to the very top of that bell curve, and then hopefully, um, you know, something will happen, and it might be an event. I mean, we don't know, but something will happen where people start to recognize the bigger picture. Isn't is more important. Right now, I am going to start the post right now. So just go ahead and go over there, comment, and we'll put you in for next week's drawing. That's it for tonight. Simplify, do or die, Patriots. Have a great week. We'll see you next Sunday.